We're live.
Hello everyone, I'm Joanna Penn and I'm here with Orna Ross and we are doing the advanced, oh gosh, I've completely forgotten, the advanced independent authors salon. I totally screwed that one up.
The Alliance of Independent Authors Advanced Self-Publishing Salon at your service.
There we go. Well, you know, I've been doing this for several years. I think that's the first time I've really got it wrong. I think it disappeared off our sheet. Sorry,
Oh,
everyone. I normally read it. Well, anyone, welcome everybody. And in fact, it's an auspicious start to this evening because we are talking about reassessing your author business and rebooting your author brand. And both Orna and I are sort of toing and froing and running around at the moment. So today we will be sharing some of that, being quite honest with you guys as ever and asking you some questions to think about. But before we do that, as ever, Orna, we should just give a brief update. So what's happening with Ally and also with you?
yeah. So at Ally, we are super excited. We worked with Michael Laron, who a lot of you will be familiar with for a very long time, and he's just finished doing an amazing book for us. Michael does the other stream of this podcast, the member Q&A with me, and we've been doing that for some years now, and he is actually going to join Ally now as part of the team, and we're all really excited. He's going to be a membership manager essentially, just because we are adding also a new category of member. We want to hook up with the various author organizations around the world and just freely share with them what we know and have a dialogue with them about their members and what they do and don't know about self-publishing, because there's still a lot of misinformation and people coming from a traditional perspective, and he will run that. We will also be formalizing an ambassador program and he'll be heading up that as well. So we have now got sort of formal connections into the creative industry sector more than the publishing sector, really, because it's kind of more relevant in 7 key territories around the world. So yeah, that's really exciting, and we're delighted that he's available for that. He's only available because he's stopped doing his law degree. He's still doing his full-time job, minding his kids and producing books at a rate of knots,
Well,
he does it.
From my perspective, I met Michael years ago as well, and he's one of those excellent people. I think I'm efficient, and then you meet someone like Michael and you're like, okay, then. So I'm really welcome, Michael, and really just brilliant addition to the team. In fact, you and I have talked about this, the number of young people who are kind of taking the indie movement to the next level is very encouraging. And, I say young, I still think we're young, but, we're 40s and 50s, 60s, whatever.
Yeah, what's numbers? I don't do numbers. But
it is exciting, and it's interesting. You mentioned traditional publishing. Of course, we are recording this kind of as things start to change in the pandemic situation, but we are seeing a lot of change in the publishing industry, and I think we're going to see a massive influx of people into indie in the coming months as things really change and cash flow situations change. So yeah, now's a very good time to be upskilling and getting more stuff and more people to help up that. So what about your writing and websitey stuff?
Yeah, so it feeds in, my month is really all about the kind of things we're going to be talking about here today, because I'm having a major, I really am. We were chatting earlier and I said, I feel like I'm taking the level of risk and the level of stride that I took when I started this whole thing. It's been just a massive turnaround that started for me quite some months ago, actually, but now is really, it's like you take a step and you don't realize, oh, that's going to bring another decision, and that's going to bring another one. So Creative Self-Publishing is my book du jour, and this is happening just as it was going to the proofreader, who also does my website. So he was booked in to do the website some weeks ahead and to do the proofreading today, but we turned it around because my website decided to break, obviously, in response to me making all these changes. It said, no, this is broken, start again. So I'm going to do a kind of a major website upgrade alongside all of this that I'm doing, just simplifying everything, which I'll talk about in a little while, but then feeding some of this back into that book, and then I'll have that at the end of this month. And yeah, nonfiction is still where I'm at very much. So there will be another guide straight after that.
Yeah, well, I've got Map of the Impossible edits done to my editor, and it's interesting because it's really the first time I've had a trilogy. Like, I've done trilogies, but this is a real trilogy. You really have to read all 3 books, and to ending that character arc when you're a discovery writer and you've just written yourself into some deep holes. I mean, it was difficult. It was a difficult edit, to be honest, but I got it done. And now, you know, you're just waiting for that comment. Did I pull this off? Did this work? So I'm very interested in that. Part of changing my process, I think I mentioned this last time, sort of freed up by the pandemic to really examine so much. And I've started plotting Tree of Life, which is my next arcane book, and goodness me, it's so hard to resist just jumping in and writing. I am working very hard to create some form of outline before I then dictate. I'm really determined to crack this. So we'll talk about that in another time, but reinventing one's creative process can be interesting, and working on a business plan mini course at the same time as creating my new business plan. And also I've got a book bub on Map of Shadows this week. So the first in the trilogy. Again, we'll come back to talking about marketing another time, but really just trying to, you know, do the ad stacking approach. So as ever, just juggling lots of different things. So that's us, isn't it?
Pretty much. The other thing that's happening for me, because I am going to be closing down a lot of nonfiction, was needing to kind of put the reason that I started a lot of this nonfiction in the first place, you know, put that into its place. So changing some of the structures and things that have upholded that nonfiction, and I'm basically letting them go. So I'm trying to find ways of just keeping that core mission in place. But I guess we'll talk a bit more about that now as we get into our topic.
Yes, so let's get into our topic today. So we're going to split it into reassessing your author business and then rebooting your author brand. So we're going to do those 2 things. So first up, this is mostly advanced stuff, but we think the questions are going to help you. This is the advanced salon, but if you can think about these questions when you're earlier on in your career, this will really help you. But to be fair, even if you do think about it, wherever you are, things will change over time. And as we talked about in terms of timing, I had a significant birthday this year. I felt it was significant. I turned 45, I'll admit it. And I really felt this moment. And also I've been doing all of this for a decade, and I felt like a decade on, I needed to reassess. So that's one thing. But then also the pandemic came along. Which, of course, we weren't expecting, but has definitely brought a sense of memento mori. Remember, you will die. We will all die. Let's just hope it's not anytime soon. But also a time of honesty, a time of examination. What should we let go of? What should we reclaim? So, Orna, in answer to those questions, what have you come up with?
Well, like you, it started for me a number of months back when I realised that I hadn't given poetry any publishing juice at all. And I started on that trip ages ago. I'm not going to talk about that because I have discussed it before. But as I said in the introduction, one thing leads to another. And I came to realise, for me, what the lockdown and illness, actually, because I did get the rattled thing. I think I did. I haven't had a test, but it certainly felt like it. What that all did for me was really looking, it's been more the lockdown, sitting still, not traveling, not doing my usual level of speaking or the other things that I have been doing for the last 8 years since founding Ally, just kind of really looking at it in the face. And I came to realize I don't have room in my schedule to do nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. And signs were on it, because I had a lot of fiction projects and a lot of nonfiction projects unfinished. And they were kind of getting in each other's way all the time. So I've made the big decision: no more nonfiction writing for me at the end of this summer. Well, for a very long time, until I get my fiction back up and running where I want it to be. Because when I started out as a self-publisher, it was very much about fiction for me. Poetry kind of snuck up on me, and I'm really thrilled it did. And what's been wonderful about it is you can fit poetry around writing fiction or nonfiction. But I think because of my background as a journalist, I thought nonfiction would be easier. I thought it would just move faster and easier for me, and it really hasn't. It's where I've been getting stuck more. I did a series of books. I had to pull them. I wasn't happy with them, trying to reinvent them. They're still not right, and it's all just it hasn't worked. So I had to be kind of brutally honest with myself. I was trying to do something that I can't do, no matter how much time I leave it, because I am very patient. Actually, I'm very patient publisher. I'm patient writer. I'm willing to wait until it's right. But I came to realize this was never going to be right because of the whole thing wasn't right.
Yeah, and similarly, I looked at it's how you spend your days is how you spend your life. Was that Maya Angelou or someone like that said that?
Wise and wonderful.
Yes, and when I looked at the amount of if I look at my business over a decade, so I left my job in 2011, so we're almost at 10 years there, but I started writing 2006, so it's been over a decade. And if I look at the percentage of time that I have spent on my nonfiction versus my fiction, and when I say nonfiction, I also mean the podcast and the website and webinars and doing all of that. And I think there have been, I really just was like, okay, well, of course I've got 10% of the result because I've spent 10% of the time. Now that's not on the creation side. So I've written 17 novels at this point. So I have definitely done the creation side, but I have not necessarily spent so much time in the marketing area for fiction. And it's really that I feel like it has been harder. So when you say nonfiction is easier, it is easier to market. It's so much easier to market. When you write cross-genre, as I do, that can be hard. And I think I've just approached it several times and gone, oh, this is way too hard. I'm just going to go over here and make money that way. And now the business is mature. And I feel like, as you say, I can take a little bit of effort and move it over. So I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up nonfiction, and I'm not giving up the podcast. I'm not giving up that stuff. I'm just changing some of my focus, and I have reduced the amount of time I'm spending on the website, for example. So I think it's
Just pop in on that as well, just to reassure people. Ally is not giving up nonfiction. I won't be writing it in future. It will be run by other people, and our podcasts and everything that upholds all the guides and everything that we do, all of that will keep running exactly as it always has. It just won't be me who's providing the content. I have said all I have to say once I finish this creative self-publishing book and the rest of the nonfiction. I've said all I have to say on those matters. I can't see it's not the kind of information that needs updating really. It's more evergreen principles, and I can't see that I'll ever really have anything. Never say never, it may pop up eventually, but it is off the table for me as a writer for now.
Yeah. So that's the first question for everyone is, what have you been thinking about in lockdown, considering during the pandemic, if you know that you're going to die, what do you want to achieve in your time that you have, however long that may be? So that's the first one. The next thing, I think, is to examine your mindset. And this was really interesting. I think, as Orna said about running around, we didn't have London Book Fair, which for many of us is about 3 weeks or more worth of work. So we all had that time. And then I wasn't in Nashville. I wasn't doing all the things. So this time to really think. So I have very much examined my mindset, and I'm going to be open and honest with everyone because we tend to be, and I don't know if I'd really admitted it to myself before, but I come across as very confident, and I am in many ways, but for my fiction, I am very vulnerable. And I think many of you can associate with that. I feel like my nonfiction is useful. I know its point in the world, but my fiction, I sometimes struggle with that. And in the early days of being an indie back when things were very different, there was a lot more hate, to be honest. There was a lot more negativity. There's still some, but back in those days, there was some real nasty, and I had a lot of nasty stuff. I was early in this space, and I was also a new fiction writer. So to be honest, some of those comments may well have been correct. Probably were. But now I feel like I've been afraid. I've really been afraid of pushing my fiction out there. And yet in this time, I've been going through my many thousands of reviews and really going, okay, it's okay. You know, you just have to be stronger. So JF Penn, Joe Francis Penn, has not really had a voice for the last decade. And I'm now stepping into that voice. So that's the next question is, why haven't you done this before? And where is your mindset? So Orna, over to you.
Yeah, I think I see Lorna there talking about she's going to take a sabbatical in the summer to focus on writing and rather than helping other writers. And I remember having I don't know if Lorna remembers this, but I remember having a conversation with her. It must be 5 years ago now, where we talked about the shadow career, which a lot of people in the creative arts live. So rather than, step out there as the writer yourself, you help other writers, or rather than, you might go into editing or take a support role in some way, or just do something that's related, but not it. And it is fear. And I'm not saying at all that that's how it is for Lorna. And I definitely know that for me, having Ally is very important, and the two feed each other very much. I know that because when I tried to write full time, I never wrote less in my life. That didn't work at all. I do need, there's a big part of me needs to do that kind of, and we've discussed that before. You're like that too, Jo.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we want to help. We're not giving that up. It's just there's a bit of a focus shift.
It's just the focus shift, exactly. And the thing is, when you're in the helping mode, that it can be much easier. Isn't that, if you like helping people, which is why we're doing it, we get a kick out of it at some level, God knows what, but that's why you do something like that. And it can be easier to chase that kick, that it's probably a dopamine hit of some kind in our brain that we've become addicted to or whatever. It's easier anyway to do to do these things and to sit down and make up stories. And especially at this time when there's so much going on in the world, a lot of people, almost every day, I'm kind of saying, I have people saying to me, it just feels so trivial what we do. I don't know how to even keep going in the face of, what we're seeing in the US at the moment. Never mind all the virus stuff and, how we're going to live from now on and all of that kind of thing. Sitting down and making up stories or poems, seems very trivial, but of course it isn't. But it's very easy for our rational reasoning minds to tell us that it is. And I think the other reason why, and certainly for me when I was looking at it, and I think it might be worth people having a think about this, there are a lot of tasks to publishing. There are 7 different processes. You've got to get the editorial, the design, the production, the distribution, the marketing, the promotion, and if you go that way, rights, licensing, right to be a good publisher. So this is certainly what was happening for me. I was doing some of those well, and that blinded me to the fact that I wasn't doing other parts of it well. And you can be, you've got to be very honest with yourself. And when you're busy, it's very easy to not be honest with yourself. And that's why creatives lock themselves away and, live remotely and everything else, because it's part of the job. So you have to find a way to get that space. And I'm kind of grateful to this time that I got that space to see it very clearly for myself.
And with all the negativity and darkness, like looking for the gifts of the pandemic, I think are important. And I think people are starting to recognize that. So that's the first set of questions. But we are not just writers, we're also business people. So we have to talk about the business side. So the first question is, what is your author business ecosystem right now? And so this is let's do a sort of audit on what we have. So for me, obviously, for my nonfiction, for Joanna Penn, I have The Creative Pen, I have a website, I have podcasts, email lists. I make money with affiliate tutorials, the website, the book sales, courses, and I have social media. But I have a very developed multiple streams of income nonfiction business that is 90% probably of my business right now in terms of income. So then with JF Penn, I pretty much have books. Well done, me. And I have different types of books, obviously, even box sets and audio and all the business. But I have a jfpenn.com. The website is not much more than a hub, to be honest, and an email list gathering. I also have, and one of the big things I did this month is pivot books and travel podcast. I now say, I'm Jo Frances Penn, thriller author, and my call to action I'm just changing all the backlist. It's now to my free thriller, and so that's giving me a voice. I'm actually really starting to be Jo Frances Penn, so much so that people email me and say, should I call you Jo or Joanna? I answer to both, by the way. So yeah, I have that, and then I have some social media. But essentially, when I look at, if somebody came along as a consultant and looked at my nonfiction business, they'd be like, that's brilliant, look at that, that's perfect. And they'd look at my fiction business and go, that's not a business. you might as well be traditionally published. Yes, I have an email list, but I'm not doing the things that I do with my nonfiction. So again, it's like, really honest. What does it look like right now? Write it down. So this is why I'm updating my business plan. So Orna, what does your author business ecosystem look like?
Yeah, so mine have always, and I think yours too, they fed each other, and that will continue to, but not in the same ways and not as much. So Ally pays me a salary for doing what I do there. It's small. We're a nonprofit. It always will be small. It's deliberately, kept that way. That's how we're set up. It was never the jam, and it was never going to be. So writing books and my publishing business has provided the other side. Now over there, I've had a multiple stream of income business because I have, the creative mentoring that I have been doing for years and did, for years before that. And physically, I had moved that into an online thing. And various other kinds of bits and pieces around the track is how I'm going to describe it, that based around nonfiction fed the whole publishing business. So it kept going and it was fine, but it certainly wasn't impressive. But the two together were fine because I don't have huge needs. And, I'm at that stage of life, I'm happy with what I have, kind of thing. So it's easier. But what I'm doing now is I'm taking away everything that isn't fiction, poetry. And I'm going to, it's going to be book sales or something I will have to put back in. So what I've done with the mentoring is that I'm doing one workshop a month, a planning workshop, which will have some teaching for a small group. And that feeds my need. I love teaching and skills-based training rather than the big webinar kind of put out the information. I don't get as much of a kick out of that. So one workshop a month is replacing a whole load of activity that used to go on at that level. And it's going to be. Now, I do believe that every author business needs to have a premium product of some kind. I think it's very, very difficult unless you're in genre fiction or a particular type of nonfiction. It's very hard to have an ongoing business for the long term just on books, because books, it's a very, very volatile business. It goes up and down and for all sorts of reasons and in all sorts of ways. So I will come up with something. I have no idea what it is yet. That's not my priority now. My priority now is to get really good at publishing what I have already and to get new product made and published and out there. That's what I mean by I feel like I'm taking the sort of risks I took back at the beginning. It's a completely stripping away all my safety nets and comfort blankets and just pure exposure in the cold winds of trying to sell fiction and poetry, and the kind of fiction and poetry that I sell that I write. But it is testament to my faith that anybody, I believe now, can, and we'll see if I can, that anybody, I believe, if you get it right, and that's something that may well take time, but we have a global audience. They're out there. There are readers out there who want the kinds of books that I write, that you write, that we all write. If we write well enough and we publish well enough, publishing well enough means finding them and making sure they know about your books and taking them to you. So that's where a huge amount of my thought is at the moment. So I'm starting a new fiction-only podcast, Family Histories, Family Mysteries. And even thinking about podcasting from the perspective of the reader is changing things already, So I've only ever podcasted to authors before. So yeah.
Yeah, I must say I love books and travel. I just absolutely love it. And when I stopped it, early days of the pandemic, went, oh, I can't do this, and then I realized where it fits in my world, and it was such an aha moment. Sometimes you just have to start stuff and see where it goes. I didn't expect it to be like this a year ago. I mean, yeah, none of us did.
Yeah, but it's gone in such a different direction. I mean, books and travel, it's gone in such a different direction, but it is working for you better than the plan you made for yourself. And that's very often what happens. I'd love to pick up on Peter's comment there. I think it's Peter. My accountant is telling me to review all my income buckets, how much cash each one attracts and how much effort it takes, and focus on the most profitable, efficient, to free me up to do the things I really want to do. And I think therein is, and thank you for raising that. I think it's Peter or whoever has raised it.
Well, somebody else, I think.
Okay. Well, they have put their finger on the nub of the issue, because for us, creative business is not like business as usual. If you're starting a business, you just, you set up for profit, you test it properly, off you go. It's and then it's still hard to make it work. But creative business is even harder because it's not purely about profit. It's always about balancing the profit and the passion, the meaning and the mission. All of that needs to be in there as well as. But if in doubt, and I think this is a question to ask as well, if you've got a whole load of things going on, which a lot of us have, either as distraction or for whatever set of reasons, if you've got lots and lots of things going on and in your heart you should streamline, using those two, do I want to lead with passion here, or do I want to lead with profit? Money can actually be a great decision maker. If in doubt, let the money lead, because most of us are not valuing our work enough financially. We're valuing it too much, perhaps emotionally, and money means that you have to engage with your reader. In order to sell a book, you have to actually nurture that relationship. And that relationship can lead you to somewhere that you haven't managed to imagine for yourself. So, yeah.
Well, which leads us nicely on. First of all, that was Henry. Hello, Henry. Thanks for the question.
I don't know why you were coming through. No, his user.
Yeah, his wasn't logged in or something. Anyway, we're going to move into the next question, which is rebooting your author brand, because this actually is a part of what you're talking about engaging with the readers. So the question here is, how do you know what your brand is anyway? So we think we can construct it top down, whereas actually sometimes it's essentially, if you've been doing it for a while, like we have, and many of this is the advanced salon, then you should have some books, you should have some reviews. So one of the things I've been doing is mining thousands of reviews for trying to understand where I fit. And this idea of author DNA, I can't remember who I heard this from, but what are the things that are common to your books? Even if you write different series, cross genre, as I do, what are some of the things that your readers consistently say? Because we think we're being original with every book, but we come back to the same themes, we come back to the similar stuff. Like for me, religious relics, I just turn up in all my books. I love architecture, I love culture and art and international locations, and all of those things end up in my books. And the themes of good versus evil is really my big thing. Defeating the monster, defeating the demon. These are my common themes, and they come up in different guises in each book. But until you actually look at what people say about your books, and I have literally been afraid of reading my reviews. I physically feel it when someone says something horrible. I get that flush, that flush of almost cold, as if you have a shock. And that's fear. That's absolute fear of judgment. It's still fear of judgment for me, being totally honest. But delving into this is the only way that you can then think about, how can I serve that market? So neither of us write to market, but I want to write to the people who love my work. And how do we tap into that? So Orna, how about you? What is your author DNA, and how do you know about your brand?
Yeah, I'm finding this one interesting, because what you were talking about, when you start off and when you go out out, you've got a completely different kind of perception of yourself. And I'm finding it difficult to see where the nonfiction that I have been doing, and I see where it connects with poetry, but I'm actually finding it difficult to see where that carries over into fiction. And I may need somebody else to help me with that part of it. And just seeing, because I mean, I've been talking to you about that for years, what is it? What is it? So you say it's, deep relationships, and somebody else says, I love the lyrical, language, and somebody else it's saying, for me, the only thing I'm sure of is, when it comes to fiction, is that it's the past, resolving your past so that you can kind of carry on into the future. That's essentially what all the books have. And then they're all family mystery, murder happens there, but lots of other things happens too, and intense mother-daughter, female relationships. The women are the stars of the books, and the men kind of feed that. So that's that. And then there's the other stuff seems to be quite different, but liberation, freedom, that's where the indie stuff comes in. Living your own life, all that kind of independence is definitely a theme.
For all of us.
For all of us, yeah, exactly. And our mode of publishing kind of is part of that. And I think that perhaps is something that could be integrated in, that might be more interesting to readers than people think. I'm not sure. It would have to be done very cleverly. But the point remains, each of us looking and seeing the touch points, the crossroads, really, about where these things intersect is useful for branding. But for me, what I'm actually doing is the opposite. I'm stripping them out. I'm going to be, if somebody will know me as the novelist, wouldn't know me as the poet, wouldn't know me as the nonfiction writer. That's the way I'm kind of going. So I'm trying to just set up separate everything for each of them. And even the language, the way in which I'm talking to people, I find this is really helping me to get to grips with it and to get it clear in my own head. And it's just organically working better that way than when I was trying to see what my unifiers were. It's actually going better for me to strip them out, though I do suspect at the end then I'll probably see something I don't see at this stage.
And I guess how I want to put it together for people is that when we're looking at positioning, so I'm branding, I think, is also positioning. So my series, of which there are some pictures behind me, so I see Barry Hutchinson there. Barry Hutchinson is talking about his JD Kirk pen name, and I've actually been looking at those covers, JD, I'll call you JD, for my London crime books, and these are so hard to market. The people who find them love them, but boy, they are difficult, because they're not straight crime, they're not supernatural, they're not paranormal, then there's so many different aspects. But so what I've been doing is really looking at this promise, and what do readers like in this? And by delving into the reviews, I'm actually finding language that we can use in marketing. So this is where it's all going, people. It's going to, how do I market? So I'm having much better success with Facebook ads. Now I can use language and do things that fit. So what somebody asked me, I'm sorry, the questions are going past quite fast tonight, which is nice, but I have not had much luck with Amazon ads with my fiction because it's cross genre. I feel like it works for fiction if you are clearly in a genre and you clearly have a cover that resonates with other people in that genre, whereas my books don't do that. But with Facebook, I'm having much better success, and BookBub ads much better success, because you can do more kind of cross-genre type stuff. So what I'm now doing is doing pitch documents for my books, or I'm calling them repositioning documents, like keynotes or PowerPoint decks with what are the things that I can pull out, and who are the true comparison authors, not Dan Brown for my Arcane series, because let's face it, not Stephen King, because these people are too big. They're just too mass market. We are not mass market. So it's really interesting work, and I am just loving it. I'm loving this investigation, really. So so I just wanted to explain that the branding is not just some abstract, some designers might say it's your font and your colors. That's not what I'm talking about with branding. It's more a positioning, and also how can you in future not end up where I have, which is all these different sub markets. How can I offer the promise going forwards? And I know, sorry everyone, we are a bit all over the place with this because we're right in the beginning of the process.
Yeah, and we will come back and report on how it has gone, and because it's bound to take some windy steps along the way, but it does seem important though to talk about it now, and also to kick it off so that everybody sees it, because what happens too much in this business is we see the end product, we see when people are doing well, but we don't actually see the steps that led to it working out, which very often takes quite a bit of time, trial and error. So we'll make mistakes so you don't have to, isn't that what they say?
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing, or do you have anything else on brand or writing to your readers? Like, because for example, Orna, you said you don't really know, but what did you call it? Family history, something mystery.
Yeah. So that was a big eye opener. Family history, family mystery.
Family mystery.
That essentially will cover everything I ever write. And I'm going to start off my podcast, which will be, I'm actually going out on my Facebook page after this. My first little 15 minutes is going to be really short, but I'm actually going to start off by just talking about that and inviting people to tell me as readers what they would actually like in an author podcast, because I don't really want to go down the road of interviewing people and stuff like that. I want this to be much more personal and about the stories, and I'll probably read a poem and stuff, that kind of stuff in time. So yeah, family history, family mystery, that basically kind of covers it all. But the thing that has definitely been most important for me is separating it out. So talking to poetry and readers in a completely different way, putting my Instagram, for poetry only. My Facebook page is going to be for fiction only, and my Twitter is going to be for the nonfiction and ally stuff. So, stratifying that out has also been important. And I'm getting a new author name. I'm sticking an A in the middle between Orna and Ross for my nonfiction, because of this is really for the stores. I'm setting up mainly on my own website. This is another kind of thing that people would say, you're crazy, you've got to do the Amazon thing. Well, I'm not. And so of course I use Amazon and will continue to, and want to grow Amazon, back up to where I had it before. But my own author site, selling my books, is working well for me, and I bring people over there, and I want it to become a hub for my readers. So the website redesign will really make it's all about the books, but on the stores, and people will be able to buy on my website anywhere they want to buy. I think that's really important, to keep giving your readers all the options they want. Just splitting out the fiction and the nonfiction, because my also boughts were all over the place, because I just had poetry, fiction, and
it's so funny because you spent years telling me I needed to take print seriously, and I was like, yeah, and I spent years telling you needed to split out your author names. So even when you're like really good friends and you're both really good at what you do, you tend not to listen to each other.
Yeah, it's true. You don't do things until you're ready.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't. Yeah, and that's fine.
And I dread to think that people going back and listening to this backlist over the last 3 years, we've probably changed what we're saying. But that's why we do this as well. It's so important, I think, to listen to people who've been around a long time, and they all do this kind of thing, because you can't stay the same over 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years, Orna, and however long you've been publishing. I mean, and why I listen to Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush and Kevin J. Anderson, 40 years publishing, still reinventing themselves every couple of months, which is brilliant. So that's why we're being honest with you guys and asking you the questions. So just to finish up, because we don't have too much time, is that what I want to say is that I now, after even my initial investigation, I feel like I have way too much work to do, down to things like, why didn't I update the formatting on that description on that large print edition 6 years ago? Why have I not got into my keywords for the last 5 years? This type of thing. And so what I wanted to say to people, and a number of people have said they're finding it difficult to get the focus back, they're becoming demotivated, motivation has waned. There's quite a lot of difficult stuff there. I actually feel, and I totally get you, I still have these days. Like yesterday, I was really mad. You know, lots of things make you angry at the moment, but it's this, okay, let's move forward and make a plan. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm making a plan and trying not to get overwhelmed, because, you know, I do have 17 fiction books plus short stories and things like that. It is easy to get overwhelmed for all of us. So what you need to do is get out another document, however you want to do it. I quite like Keynote, actually. It quite helps because you can do lots more pictures and stuff, and write down your plan and then start working on the plan. I mean, like literally, and execute slowly. And my motto at the moment is, yes, work on the plan, but every day I must do one thing for JF Pen. So that might be scheduling a BookBub ad, or it might be updating one description, or it might be making a little video, or it might be a books and travel episode. So, or it might be putting a picture on Instagram some days, you know. So that's my tip, is make a plan, but equally one thing per day, really small, to get you towards your goal. So Orna, what are your next steps?
Yeah, well, getting the website sorted, getting the books. I'm doing refreshes on my covers also, because that's also part of it, and because I have to change the author name anyway and take the opportunity to change a few other things. So lots of work there. I'm just crazy lady running around chasing my tail. There are so many small bits of things that need to be done. And sometimes I look at things and I literally, I'm boggling. I'm thinking, you didn't do that? You know, it just seems...
Just slipped off the radar. I know the
feeling.
feeling.
Or things that I thought, like my back matter on my fiction, you know, gosh, it's so out of date, you know, that kind of stuff. But anyway, just going through it all. And for me, what keeps me okay here is knowing this is long term. So it isn't, and I think that's the most important thing. We're still here and able to reinvent what we're doing, because we already have a flow that is working and it's set up to work over the long time. So we haven't just done one thing. And then while that has given its own problems, they're sortable problems. They're not actually very big things, and they're not actually taking a huge amount of time if you think about it over the span of being an author publisher's life. It's not a long time at all for the return that's, you know, hopefully going to be there. So I think the long-term thinking is really important when we're doing the kind of revisioning that we're talking about here. It is, you know, you started with the memento mori thing. What's the end game? What do you want to look back on when you turn around at the end of it all and look back? What do you want to say you did? And you know, you have a sense of that. You've known that for a very long time. We all had. We know it, but staying close to that is challenging always. And we're always being kind to wander off, and we have to put ourselves back.
Indeed. So we know that this has been a challenging episode today. We've asked some questions which hopefully have got you thinking, and we're asking them of ourselves. I hope you appreciate our honesty as ever. We just try and keep it real here. But I guess, as ever, I mean, if you're just starting out, then you're still writing that book. Just, you know, it's taking that step by step, and still the basics are still here. We're still writing. I'm still spent this morning researching the Garden of Eden for my next book. Of course, as one does, because we keep writing, we keep publishing, we keep marketing, we keep connecting with each other, and those things remain the same. So Orna, next month, because we're coming up to the end, tell us what we're going to cover next month.
Social media, actually, because we haven't done that for a very long time, and my experience in kind of stripping it all out and trying to, you know, set up different social platforms to match the kind of branding that I want to have in the books and the ads, and, you know, all of that, I think will be a good topic for us to delve quite deeply into social, and using it, you know, to nurture us and feed our creative life, instead of using it as a distraction into which our creative life goes kind of down the drain. how do we actually, really use social media well in terms of connecting with our readers and also feeding and nurturing our creative selves? That's kind of it, I think.
And selling books. I'll throw that in as well.
If you look after the first bit, the second bit happens, I always think.
And thanks to everyone who's saying that this was a helpful discussion. Mary Lynn says, loving your honesty, heartened to hear how much fear you feel, Joanna. Makes me feel a lot better about my own fear. Well, thank you, Mary Lynn. I feel like admitting this stuff is really hard, but as ever, the more honest that we are, the more we realize that other people feel the same way anyway. So, and I wrote The Successful Author Mindset like 8 years ago, and it has a whole chapter on this. I need to keep bringing it back out again for myself.
Well, yeah, the thing is that it's a different mind. We've got both of those minds going all the time, and we'll always have moments of fear. In fact, if you're not kind of feeling the fear, you're probably not in the creative zone. If it's all very comfortable and you're just churning it out, then it's stopped being creative. So it's good to be feeling fearful, as long as you don't let the fear stop you.
Yeah. So everyone, I guess that's it for now. So happy writing,
happy publishing.
We'll see you next time. Bye.